Not your average tabletop. Woohoo!
Welcome to Not Your Average Tabletop. I'm Zach,
And I'm Pepper.
and today we're going to do our first impressions on the second expansion to the Quacks of Quedlinburg, The Alchemists.
The Alchemists. This one's coming after the Herb Witches expansion, which we did enjoy quite a
Mm-hmm.
bit, I think.
Yeah, it was definitely good enough, and just from the base game, you knew that could use
Mm.
an expansion, or
I don't know if it could
not that
use,
not that
but
it could use an expansion, but that
it's the
you could.
perfect game to expand.
Right, it's one of those games that would be easy to expand because you can come up with a bunch of new powers that the chips can do. Because in the base
Yeah.
game you start off with like four powers or whatever it is for each of the chips, and I think just adding more of those or more chips is just
Yes.
an easy thing to do for these. So I think it was kind of expected that it would have at least one
At
expansion,
least
if
one.
not more. And yeah, we enjoyed the first one, so we definitely wanted to check this one out. And
Yeah.
I think, like the first one and probably the original game, I think it kind of came out in Germany first for a
Yep.
while.
Yep.
Was out there first, and then um, somewhat recently got in English. It finally came out in English, so finally we're able to try it.
Yeah, I remember like maybe even half a year to a whole year ago, I saw on BGG, and there was a German version or a German rule book, and someone was trying to translate it, but it wasn't the clearest translation, so I kind of got a vague idea of what was going on, but not much.
Hmm.
So I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna wait. I'm not gonna look at all these details. I'm just
Hmm.
gonna wait till it comes out, figure it out then.
Right. And I think our main worry, or sort of a worry, was whether or not this one, like the
Oh
second one,
yes,
would need
the
another set of the bits,
yes
um,
the upgraded
the
bits.
upgraded bits from BGG,
But
which
yeah,
we got from the base and the
yes.
first expansion.
Yeah, he had said, Wolfgang, I believe it was, had said, no, you will not need new bits. But then, as you can see, or as we can see on the back of the box here, it shows some bits in
Hmm.
there, but I believe those are just extra bits.
Hmm. Right. Yeah. And then
And,
it had like some
oh yeah,
people ones, and I still wasn't 100% sure, but I'm like, I can't imagine he'd put something in here after saying that, and then have it only be like a few chips, because
yeah,
that seems, I don't know.
yeah, yeah. But those, turns out,
Right.
they are not put in your bag with your normal ingredients.
Right. But I
So,
think there was the local weed in this one, so if you didn't
yeah,
get the first expansion, you may still need to buy an upgraded set
yes, yeah.
for this. But otherwise, what were your hopes or initial thoughts when you heard of a new expansion or the second expansion coming out?
Um, yes. Well, my hopes were just more of the same unique abilities for all of the chips.
Hmm.
I wasn't expecting too much, like game changing things,
Hmm.
like it may have ended up being.
Hmm.
But I was just expecting and hoping for just more stuff for the
Hmm.
game. Just because I loved what the first one did, just gave you more ingredients, like doubled the
Hmm.
amount that you had, and
Right.
already the base game had quite a few. So I was
Hmm.
just hoping for more of that.
Right. Yeah. I was in the same boat when I first heard it. I was very excited and couldn't wait for it because yeah, the Quacks of Quedlinburg, even before the Herb Witch expansion, was already probably one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah,
So it was just natural that I was looking forward to another expansion because yeah, I really enjoyed the Herb Witches one and what it added, and was hoping it would add more or less the same type of content for this one.
yeah,
So yeah, I had high expectations going into it, or pretty high. I mean, I wasn't expecting, like you said, like insane, game changing, totally feeling like a whole different game type content.
yeah.
Um, so, yeah.
And so, as we learned a little bit more, it added a new part to the board, a very big new part to the board.
Right.
So I was like, oh, it didn't look like there was as much like new stuff or new
Hmm.
types of ingredients to the base. It adds, well, let's see, it adds different sicknesses that you can cure.
Right.
Or
So it's kind
that's
of like,
theme,
yeah,
but
it's kind of like different pieces like the herb witches um, kind of are, where it's another,
Yes, an
cardboard
additional
piece.
thing to do in the
An
game.
additional thing that you can do. And there's, what are there, 6, 7, 8 of those different
Yep.
ones. So there's definitely a variety, like other things in the base game and in the herb witches, where you have multiple options per game to kind of try out to see what you can do with those different
Yeah.
uh, sicknesses or illnesses that you're trying to cure.
Yeah. So then you have this part that you add onto your normal board.
That almost
and it's
doubles. So your
doubles
normal
the
board
space
is
pretty
already
much.
your board is already pretty large. Your player board.
Yeah.
And this adds probably another 2/3 of a player board.
Yeah, I would say so.
It starts taking up a very big amount of space. Especially if you get into the 4 or 5 player games, it's going to take
Yes.
up a whole table easily.
Yeah,
Especially with
easily.
all the different chips. And if you were playing with the Herb Witches expansion, you got those things out there too. It's going to take up a lot of space on your table.
Yeah, for sure. This is quickly becoming one of the biggest table hogs we own.
Yeah, which I would have never expected it from this game. I wouldn't have thought that that's what they would do, but it does fit nicely. Kind of like with the first expansion, they added that bowl that kind of goes off to the side and fits nicely in place there. This one fits nicely right on top.
Which I'm like, there's that left side that they need to add something to now.
Right, there could be one more expansion coming to kind of fill that up.
Yeah, but it kind of reminds me of the Everdell expansions. Don't those boards kind of lock into place with the main board?
You
pretty
gotta
neat.
just add those around there. Yeah, I do like that they made it so that it's not like just a rectangular piece that you just put above your thing. It kind of slides into place. It feels really nice that it all comes together, even though it is a very large piece now combined.
Yes.
But yeah, so basically what it adds is like this. I think it's like a vial of the medicine you're making or whatever.
It's pretty much a new track.
Yep, another track. So kind of like if you play on the opposite side of your cauldron side, where you have the little extra spot where you can move up your water droplet to get different rewards. It's kind of a similar type thing, but it's another track on top that you will determine in between after you've...
So once you've either stopped or busted,
right,
then based on the amount of unique colored chips
yes,
that you have in your pot, as well as each unique type color of chip will count as one
outside of the white ones.
Outside of the white ones, and then if you also stopped at exactly 7 white, that would count as another point, and for each of your neighbors that bust will be another point. And you add all this up and move that many spots on the track, and depending at the beginning of the game, you draw 3, but depending on which sickness you chose to cure, the amount of spots you get on the track will get you a certain bonus printed on those cards.
Yeah, and it's usually, if it's an actual bonus that you get right away, it's either usually victory points or a rat tail, I believe. Are most of them. But then
I had one where it let me draw additional chips to then place immediately into my pot, pretty much increasing my money and points that I'll get in the upcoming scoring phase.
Yeah, and then there was another one where it allowed you to pick up to like 10 chips if you got it all the way full at the beginning of the next round. So you could have those on the side, and you can, instead of pulling one from the bag, you can put those in your pots instead. So, depending on which chips you get out there, if you have any different colors that like score based on being after another chip, or if they, if it's like one of the yellow ones that gets rid of a white chip, I mean, that can be... It adds a whole different thing to the game that was not there before, which I found extremely awesome. It makes some chips more powerful than they were before. For sure.
Because particularly that purple one that I forget if that's an expansion one, like from the first expansion, or if that was base.
I don't remember which book it's from,
but it scores a number of points based on the number printed on the next chip placed after it. So if you were able to pull out with this vial the 10 chips at the beginning, which Michaela was able to do, pull out 10 chips at the beginning, you can pretty much place that purple and she also had some 6 pumpkins, so she was able to
Put
place that right after it and get 6 points. She
So-
even got 12. She did
Right.
it twice and got
Right.
12 points one round.
Right. So it can be extremely, extremely powerful. It's really, really insane that because I felt like I don't know. In my opinion, a lot of those purple ones are a little weaker, or they seem
Yep.
weaker. They're very dependent on other things happening,
Yes.
and this illness in particular, not all of them, but this one allows you to kind of manipulate that
Yeah,
to be
for
better
sure.
in your odds or
Yeah,
in your favor than it
definitely
typically is.
makes those purples a lot better.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think there's a bunch of other things
Yeah, a
that
bunch
they
of
can do.
unique ones.
Because I also had one where you could spend 2. So once you fill it, similar to the other one, it's more based on the next round. Unlike yours, where it was that round you got to do them, right?
Yep.
In mine, it was the next round as well, like Michaela's, where anytime I landed on a ruby spot, I could take away or move the droplet back twice, or not the droplet, but the little bubble thing, bubble marker back twice, and then I could get a reward depending on which number valued chip, or if it was like a black chip, pink or purple chip, or a yellow chip. Depending on those things, I could get a different reward, like a ruby, or a dice roll, or a yellow chip, I believe, or 3 victory points. So that was pretty interesting as well. And I found out I land on the ruby spaces more than I thought. I ended up, well, most of them were like the ones that I've got on the ruby spaces. So I had a ton of rubies throughout the game, which allowed me to move my water droplet up a ton, and then always pretty much have refilled vial at the beginning of each round, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and this whole thing ended up making us get a lot higher scores. Because a normal base game, I think anything over 50 would be a great score, right?
I think it's dependent.
I mean, depending on what you get.
I'm not 100% sure. we might play it wrong, but we like to just kind of throw random books all together.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if you're supposed to actually do like the 2 bookmark thing and have all of them be the 2 bookmark, or if you can kind of mix and match. We always mix and match.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends too on which ones you're putting out there, I think, for scores. But yeah, I would say typically it's 50 to 60 is typically where we end up anyway.
Yeah.
And this last game we played of it, Kayla was at like 120, 120 something. Which and you were.
I didn't do as good this game, but I still almost got.
Right, but you busted a couple times though.
Yeah,
too,
I did,
so.
and I almost got 100. Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was much more powerful than some of the other things.
For sure. So, as someone who likes high-scoring games, what do you think of that?
I do like it. I always like when it gives you even more ways of trying to combo things together to get more points. I always like when it allows you to manipulate it to do that.
Yes.
So when it gives you those options versus, not that the base game is like that luck dependent. It is, but you can still, if you get enough chips in there, you kind of have some say over what's going to come out and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I do like that. I also like, I think, that this kind of makes you try to get almost one of each chip color. Because otherwise I feel like sometimes, depending on what they do, I'll just end up getting, I'm just going to focus on getting all these blue chips or all of 2 kinds. This one at least makes you, try to use some of those other chips, which I find, I really like that. That way it doesn't feel like, I'm just ignoring those green chips or something like that. I really like that it adds that little twist to it that for every color you get out in your pot that you'll go up further on that track.
Yeah, for sure.
And it also, I like that it makes you kind of take those risks that you wouldn't have necessarily taken to try to get to that 7 level. You might be more willing to, I could maybe go for it here. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It definitely adds more strategy and direction as well. Sometimes some of them do kind of add a direction that you want to go with. But yeah, it also, maybe not this previous game, but the first game we played, it definitely added a lot of time
Mm-hmm.
to the game. We were learning it,
Mm-hmm.
but it definitely did add a lot of time. I think it was quicker this
Mm-hmm.
last time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but did it seem kind of back to the regular time? This,
I'm not sure. It might have still been a little bit longer. I think
yeah.
it at least adds some time. I don't. I feel like our first game of it
Yeah.
might have just been an anomaly. I don't know that it actually should take as long as it took us that time. 'Cause that
Yeah,
one did take us a long
I was
time. I
worried.
don't
I'm
know
like,
what
oh boy, that
that
was
really made it
that might,
slow. Or
was how
what was it? It felt like we went. It felt like the game was like 2 rounds too long or
yeah,
something.
which maybe we forgot to move it. But
But
yeah, it felt long. Where I was even thinking like, oh, we could take off a round or maybe even two of this. But thankfully, this last time we played, it felt a lot quicker.
hmm
But it still does add a little more time, and obviously takes up more table space, and is a little more, maybe complicates it a little more.
hmm
So if you don't care for that or aren't looking for that, then I guess you could maybe not go for this. But
hmm
I did enjoy it quite a bit.
hmm Yeah, because it doesn't. So the second one adds that. Well, I guess it adds local weed as well,
Yep.
but and I think it adds its own books. I don't remember what the different ones were.
Yeah.
Oh, and one of the other things, before I forget to mention it, I do like because I don't think did the second one add cards, new cards.
Oh, it did not.
This
Not that I
one
know.
did add new cards.
It had
I
like
don't think
20
the
new
second one did.
cards.
Yes,
And
and
some that we saw were very, very powerful.
they were very powerful. Definitely, they felt way more powerful than some of the original ones, and it just I, I had kind of gotten. I don't want to say sick of the original ones, but it
But
felt like it
you
was
see
always
the
the same
same
thing
ones
over
because
and over and over.
there's like 9, 10 rounds, and there's
hmm
only like 20 cards in the base, so you're gonna see a lot of those over and over again.
So
Um,
I really love that they added more of them, and I really love that they felt really powerful.
they
Like
did. They felt different and they
like
felt
pulling them,
powerful.
because I don't think we didn't look at them beforehand.
No.
And we just were originally using just those, and we'd flip them over and be like, "Oh my gosh, this is way bigger than anything in the original." So
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
I much prefer that over. I think we needed that a lot more than another round
hmm
of ingredients.
hmm
Um, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that, and I definitely think if they were to make a third expansion, I for sure want them to add even more cards. I think
Yes.
that's. I found that I think I want that more, like you said, than more ingredient boards or
Yeah.
whatever different ways to score them. Because yeah, I think that is one of the biggest things that I think now playing it. It almost might have been the biggest thing in this game, outside of like the actual big piece.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I don't know that like the new local weed recipes or anything. I don't remember which ones
Yeah.
they
No.
were exactly, but I don't think
Yeah.
that.
I don't often go for local weed anyway, so that wasn't overly interesting for me. But yeah, it was all in that new board and those cards for me.
Mhm. Yeah. So, what was your initial ranking of this expansion, or like you said, I think you already kind of said whether or not you would want to add it on to the base game. Would you play the base game without it now? I guess.
Well, I guess that kind of depends on if other people want to play with it.
hmm
But I mean, for the time being, for how I'm feeling about it right now, I don't see any reason not to play with it.
hmm
Just gives you another bonus thing to do and rewards to get in between rounds,
hmm
and can possibly. I just love that you're able to, with some of these, kind of shape your next round
hmm
as well.
Yeah.
That's just, and yeah, it does make you push your luck more, trying to get that, which kind of balances out some of the abilities, like from the herb witches,
hmm
which can kind of add a little more forgiveness into it. This
hmm
kind of makes you want to push your luck a little more.
hmm
Um, so yeah, I really, really love this expansion. I love the base game. I love both expansions now.
hmm
It's just getting better and better. It's getting better and better. It might be number one next year. Who knows?
The expansion alone?
The expansion
Well, it says
alone.
here that this is an expansion that requires the Quacks of Quedlinburg base game to play.
Ah, what does it have? Only loco weed and some white chips? Okay, maybe you do need the base. But yeah, my rating for this as an expansion, I'd say initial rating of maybe a 9.25.
Ooh.
I like it a lot.
Yeah, I think I've got to agree with you. As an expansion, 'cause yeah, usually, I would say expansions take a little bit more to be a high score, but at the same time, if I feel like, this is an expansion I would almost always play with that gets it very close to a 10, I would say this one's definitely right around where you were saying, 9 to 9.5 for me as well, because, yeah, I love everything that it adds. It just makes the Quacks of Quedlinburg even better than it already was. It's one of my favorite games. This just adds on to it. I didn't think that they could add something so big to it and yet not make it feel like it totally changes the game.
Yeah.
But then still gives you a feel of, like you said, a little more control over what you're doing, give you a little bit more of a path to follow during your following rounds and other things like that. I would if you really love the Quacks of Quedlinburg and you loved the Herb Witches expansion and you want even more, or you're looking for something that'll change it up a little bit, or a decent amount actually, this is definitely one I'd recommend. But yeah, if you don't really want to, if you're more of a person just looking for more ways to score your different things or whatever, I don't know or just the booklets, I don't know if this would be the one for you. Just like
Get it just for the cards.
Yeah, the cards are pretty good too.
Would you get it just for the cards? How much would you be willing to pay for that little pack of cards?
Ooh, I don't know. Maybe $10? I don't know. Maybe I would say if they doubled the amount of cards, it's probably worth like $10 to $15 for just those cards. I think, but that's because I've played the base game quite a bit and am used to those original cards. So, yeah, I would say if you're looking for those, that is in this game. And at worst, if you don't like the expansion, you have those cards.
Yeah.
So, yeah, other than that, it's a great expansion. I highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah, me as well. Yeah, I was worried when I saw this big board that they were at, and I'm like, it's going to be hit or miss. But luckily for me, they hit it out of the park.
Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see what they put on that left side of the board in the third expansion eventually.
And there's something to wrap around all of these boards as well.
Right.
Another big track.
Right. But otherwise, if you have any other questions about the game or what's inside or anything like that, leave a comment below. We'll get back to you on it.
Yeah. If you want to see us play the original base game, Quacks of Quedlinburg, we might have included some stuff from the Herb Witches. I don't think we did.
I think we played with the base.
Okay. But yeah, if you want to see that, we have playthrough, review, rules for that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can go check that out on our channel.
Yeah, and also, if you want us to play with this game with this, a playthrough, or with the Herb Witches expansion, or both, definitely let us know.
See how those are played.
We can try that out, see what happens. See if we can fit it all on camera with the huge boards. But otherwise, we hope to see you next time. And as always, don't forget to
keep on nibbling.